All staff, or changes in the agenda? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to adopt it as presented. All in favor? Carried. And with that, we'll turn it over to it's Bill to discuss the operating budget continue, number 3. Or is that the or at the end of sort of review the agenda. But if you have any questions, like was council at our last meeting, having a new budget preparation, we'll just go through some of the post any questions or provide clarification. That was resulted from the last meeting. There was a comment made at the last meeting that we had discontinued sidewalk snow removal. That's not the case. We are still doing sidewalks. The library board expenditure, bottom line, without confusing everyone, was the slide was wrong, so the budget and what's in the budget document is the correct numbers. There was no adjustment required on our tracking sheet per se. The next item, just to refresh council's memory, is where we stand on the tracking sheet. The base budget had a deficit of approximately $145,000. There are some carry forwards that to $33,000 that we reviewed with council at the last meeting. That doesn't impact the net deficit because money unspent in 222, so we would just use that under expenditure to carry forward to complete projects in 223. That being said, it was Sprout votes on a couple items that did make it onto the tracking sheet. So what administration has done is, if there was general consensus of council, we've added on to the tracking sheet. If there wasn't general consensus and there's outstanding information, we'll deal with it tonight. Our council will deal with it tonight. So there was a couple items that were, 2 items that seemed to have council support. That natural gas control release kit and the labor done, and both those will be funded from the relevant reserves. Again, not impacting the tax rate deficit. As it stands right now, it's a 3.6% tax rate increase. And then we'll move on to the outstanding items. Those are just for information at this point. We'll be asking council to give us direction on each and every one of those, but the outstanding items are just there in reference. 2 outstanding items, the natural gas pathologic testing and the community grant budget. What's the aggregate allocation for that budget? Council want to maintain it, reduce it, increase it, and we'll get to that in a minute. Question on natural gas pathologic testing. Was it done before? Well, as far as our records indicate, it's never been done. There has been inspections of the bed, but not of the actual pipeline itself. We'll get into that. So you'll see on the next page a little sheet. So on a go-forward basis, any capital program or new initiative that council is going to be considering will be presented on a template similar to this to give council additional information in the decision making. Again, look at it, we'll delineate whether it's a new project or a carry forward project. We never fell in love with the carry forward project this year. On a go-forward basis, they will be filled out. A little description of what the item is and priority. This is administrative priority. So for this year, we just did high priority, medium priority, and low priority. Again, those are administrative priorities, not necessarily council priorities. So council can rearrange the priorities as they see fit. Again, some additional information, whether it's a change in service level, whether it's a newer replacement of an existing asset. So is it a new thing or is it, replacing an existing asset? And the expected life of the asset. So, as staff get more comfortable with this template, that will be case of a capital project may also have incremental operating impacts. So we want to make sure that council recognize if there are operating impacts associated for new capital assets, implicitly, they're being approved with that capital asset bill per se. So for instance, if we were to come forward next year with a splash pad, obviously there's some operating impacts related to that splash pad besides the capital bill. So we will be showing what the operating impacts are of any of these proposed projects. Specifically with the new assets that aren't replacement, administration will also be putting in required contributions for the replacement of that asset. So we get into the practice of funding the future replacement needs of our infrastructure. So that's really what the forum's about. So again, the two decision items related to the operating budget that are outstanding. There was other projects that, of course, council deferred, so we're not even showing those anymore. They've been deferred and they're off the list for this year. And these are American 3 years budgets, but they're not actively being pursued in this year's budget. The two outstanding projects are the natural gas line testing and the grants budget. We'll be with the audit testing first. Staff are here to provide some more detailed technical information that council has for reflection. So we try to summarize it at a very high level. So that's basically it. So the initial high transmission pipeline was installed in 1960. To our knowledge, there's been no extensive testing of that pipeline. So there is risk associated with that. Pipeline 50 plus years old. We don't know that we're experiencing excessive losses in the pipeline already through leakage and the like. So it's just good practice to have this inspection done. And hopefully wants to add further.
Any questions from council?
Oh, we actually have a
Sorry, no, I didn't see him.
Okay, so the testing here, is this something that we would do and have to buy some equipment for, or do we farm this out?
This would be a contract we don't have the capabilities of doing.
Okay, and how often is it recommended that this be done? Is this like a once every 10 years thing, or?
Well, with our pipeline, the age of it probably should be done at least every 10 years.
Okay.
This should give us an indication of the life expectancy of this pipeline, give us a good indication of what condition it is in. We have in the past had one leak on it since I've been here. That was located just north of the Peavine Road, probably in the mid-2000s. Overall, the condition, what we can tell, the pipeline is still in pretty good condition, but we need to know on what's happening there and if there's going to be replacement costs coming in the near future. It runs at 420 psi, so we can blow through a lot of gas in no time if we get a leak, and it's metered, so we would be on the look for paying for that.
Judy and then Jonah. So the other municipalities,
The ones that have gas systems, yes, they do an integrity test on their pipeline.
you have monitors, so I'm assuming we have monitors, so if there is a drop in the pressure line, that
Yes,
we're
we do.
alerted immediately.
We do have monitors, plus we do a comparison read between Heart River and what we get in town.
So we already have the safeguards in place, should there be a leak, the alarm should, if there's a drop in pressure, the alarm should go off right away and should be able to isolate that immediately.
But if we isolate it, we've got no gas.
Well, you should know where you should have monitors.
We have a monitor at Heart River Station, and we've got a monitor at the exchange, but it's not, physically see it, it's not a call-out system.
So we do this test and they say, like, we know that stuff will have to be replaced. So we are putting stuff away in reserve in that account, and that's what our, utilities account is for. So we do this test and he says, okay, it's gonna last another 3 years, what do we do about it?
Then we need to start making a plan on finding, either replacing that line or finding, an alternative source of gas.
I want to research my questions, I just want to think about this information.
So how long have we had that pipeline?
It was built in the, by Northwestern Utilities in the 60s.
So we've had that since the sixties. Why have we not done this before?
That is a good question. I've never had it done. There are new directives coming down the Federation, as far as, pipeline safety. And, it should have been done. I'm not gonna say it should have been done.
Alright.
I'm just wondering, do we have any redundancy in the system? Like you said, if there was a leak, is there a way to bypass and keep gas in the town or?
Yes, depending on the time of the year, yes. 40 below in the middle of the winter, we'll be getting, pressure trucks in to hook up to our systems.
Yeah, that's the
We
way.
do have a south feeder, which will supply some gas, but it's not gonna supply what the north line does.
Okay, no, that was my big question. I know that's, and people in town, this is the time of year when you can't afford to have your gas going for very long. And do we, but we don't partner with, the gas co-op with any extra lines coming in?
That's the south feeder is partnered with them.
Okay.
In future, if this line needs to be replaced, we have had discussions about tying on a lot closer to town, transmission line, so that it wouldn't be as costly to replace.
Yeah, that makes sense. Piggyback on their line a
Well,
little further.
they bought a line back in the early, well, shortly after 2010, when the company wanted to sell it. They bought that line, and the only way they're gonna piggyback us is if they have enough gas for their customers first.
Okay, that's the session.
Okay, so for a couple of things, these safety directives, who are they coming from? Is it the natural gas co-op or?
It'd be, Alberta Utilities.
And so they just,
And there is, no, it's not just now, it should have been done before,
do they mandate these safety measures in the past?
not to us, they have not. But it's in the code that you have to do certain things to certain areas. But this is more of an assessment of that pipe, so for future planning.
So when I looked up audit testing, protection and maintenance, it's about, corrosion protection, is that what that is? It's metal corrosion protection?
Yes, it's a steel gas line.
Okay, so, the company that's, given us the quote to do this, have we looked at others in the area, or is this?
We just got the quote so that we know that this is what we can budget for. It will go out to, there's only 2 companies in Alberta that do it. Corpo's one and Alpha West is the other.
And so what is the length, so I'm just trying to understand, is this just the main line, is it all of our, tributaries, which line, and what is the length of that line?
That's 26 miles.
So is it just the one main line, or is it?
Well, the anode bends in town, the anode bends are separate. That's the thing we do on an annual basis to get the voltage that is being put onto the steel lines in town to make sure that they're being protected. Now, this is different then that is also gonna give us an assessment of condition. If it's a good continuity all the way along, then we know the pipeline is in pretty decent shape. If it doesn't have good continuity, then we're gonna know that something's going on.
I know this isn't coming out right, but is this a nice to know or a need to know?
This is a need to know. We need to know what kind of shape that pipeline is in. You gotta think it's 62 years old or older.
Yeah, but there's many pipelines who have been in the ground, that have been in the ground for years. And when they're laying the pipes, they coat them, they rock on them, they do all kinds of treatment to them so that they do last longer than our
It
lifetime.
is a yellow jacket pipe. However, there are, for instance, in the one leak that we did have on that line, it was a weld. An improperly protected weld that let go. It was just a pinhole on that weld. But that was just in repairing that line. I think it was around 25 grand just to repair the line, and that did not include the gas loss.
So I guess what I'm getting at, Brian, is, okay, so they tell us, so we spent 40,000 and they say, in the last, another 10 years, let's say.
Then we need to,
Well, no, it's like, just so, we already have money put away, right? That's, we have an account, and we're putting money into that reserve for our infrastructure, which is our gas line. I can't, please convince me or help me understand, what is the purpose behind this? So, and it's just a guesstimate, and we tend to hire these people, they give us a guesstimate, but they're never held to, like he says, 10 years, and it goes in 3. They're off the hook, right? Like,
nobody can be 100% sure in predicting what's gonna happen.
I guess, maybe help with it. The town is the owner and operator of the system. The message staff are sending is, we need to do our due diligence to make sure the integrity of the pipeline is there. But more importantly, that the service is continually available. That's what putting money away in the service. I can guarantee you that there is inadequate money to do the pipeline replacement. This is a preventive maintenance, premeditated plans to say how much time do we have, what are the risks associated with the current pipeline, and how quickly do we need to move on it? Because we may be back right after the study saying, well, we have to triple our reserve contributions because of the life expectancy of the pipe. It's already, nearing a point of no return in terms of replacement, so.
there have been pipelines in the ground for
Right,
longer than that.
but most of the operators, if I could, are maintaining and have a very diligent maintenance program attached to the pipelines. That's not the case necessarily, with pipelines within the urban boundaries. Yes, staff are actively reviewing those annually, and, they're more aware of it. On that 29 mile distribution line, our staff are not inspecting that line, they're not actively maintaining that line. It's a total different kettle of fish. So at the end of the day, staff are saying, look, there's a high degree of uncertainty attached to the future of this infrastructure. We need professional experts to look at and review and give council an assessment of the pipeline condition. And that may lead to other avenues being explored by council. But that's where we sit now. So yeah, there's a long history. The pipeline is there. But bringing it forward now on a proactive basis to say, this is an area that we should manage better as the owner of this utility.
This is closing the barn door before the horse gets out, is what this is doing.
back with what to be done.
We may have to put more anode beds along there to extend the life.
Right.
Of that pipeline. I was just looking at what's in the gas reserve, and it's 300,000. To replace 26 miles of pipeline, even if you're putting in 4 or 5 miles of pipeline, that's gonna be eaten up real quick. And I think we need to, seriously look at, the future of the system itself too.
But the pipeline is not all of the same age, is it?
From up there to the, not quite, in 1998 or 96, somewhere in there, they did move from the old town mills about 4 miles over to pull off of Trans-Canada. So there is a pipeline in there that's about, I guess it'd be roughly 25 to 30 years old, the section of that.
Session.
Other than that, it is built in the 60s all the way in.
Just a clarification for that pinhole, that pinhole roof that we had, the cost of 25,000, have we done this prior to that? Did we have awarded the 25,000 cost? Or is this just a diagnostic and we still have that 25,000?
I can't answer that question. Whether it would have picked it up or it wouldn't have, I don't know. That it would have.
I guess the question is, if this is a, it's an erosion prevention, would that pinhole hole, what would have happened? Could we prevented that with this, or is this just a diagnostic to say, hey, that there's.
The biggest thing that this is to gather some information on the life expectancy of this pipeline so that we can provide council with information on replacement or what council wants to do in the future. I can't say one way or the other if that would have picked it up.
This is part of our asset management exercise, really, this is exactly the kind of diagnostic they want us to use.
Yes.
It'd be scary to think, oh my gosh, we only have $300,000 in funds, that we find 1.3 million. That's like
Okay, so we've all had a chance to ask our questions. We need to, I guess we can do a quick vote on whether or not we want to include this. The money will be coming out of the reserves, so it's not necessarily an increase to the operating budget, but we're approving this project to move forward, right? All right, so all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we're going, the next one was the grants and sponsorships.
At the last meeting, we went through some of the technical issues related to, that would necessarily apply, so be proactive, putting stuff out in the area of the media, on our website to attract applications. But prior to doing that, we want to make sure there's going to be a budget to begin with. So the history this year, that doesn't necessarily reflect what may come in 2023. So the aggregate budget as it stands in the budget that's before council is 34,700. There was a technical issue related to the food bank, and we've been providing funding for the food bank of roughly $3,725 a year, but it hasn't been booked correctly in the budget or in the like. So we want to recognize that and rationalize that. 23 going forward. Council did ask at the last meeting if we could do a little survey at the open house. The results of the survey are on the next page, and to go through those quickly. There was roughly 12 residents that responded to the survey. 10 said they support providing grants, 1 said no, 1 was me. Do you support increase in funding directed between grants? 4 yes, 7 no, 1, again, maybe. You want to see a decrease in funding to community grants? Yes, 2, and no. So, what we're looking for is, again, it was a small sample size, only 4 residents responded at the open house. But it seemed, the balance would suggest they either want it maintained at a minimum and maybe even decreased a bit. So we're looking for direction of what council wishes the aggregate budget allocation to be in 223. Is it to stay at 34,700, decrease or increase? And then we could add that on to the tracking issue.
Okay, thoughts out there? Councilor Dinac.
I mean, even though that small sample said, providing grants, no decrease, I would like to have that decreased to like half of that, like 12,500.
Councilor Martins.
So Don, one of the residents that attended that, I don't know who these 12 are, because I know at least 2 members of the board down, so I'm trying to figure out who the 12 were. That aside, 12 was hardly a sample size of our race base, but one of the ideas put forward by someone that attended that meant was that there's 7 council members, excuse me, give each one $5,000. That's $35,000. And you can choose not to spend it for a year, or you can choose to spend it. Or obviously, you may not spend 5,000, so let's say Teresa is spending 1,000 and she needs more. John could go in, so each one has 5,000, you can choose to spend it or not. At the end of your term, you can say to your rate base or your, the ones that, I spent it, I didn't spend it, this is where it's spent. Just an idea, it's actually a resident idea. Just thought I'd throw it out there because it was mentioned.
Are you talking about the training allowance that councils have, or what?
No, like $35,000, so I just rounded it up to 35, because the math
Yeah.
was 7 times 5.
Yeah.
Each one of us would be allocated $5,000, within 35 buckets. She's got 5, he's got 5, I've got 5, adding up to 35. So if any given sponsorship, we can choose to support it, if you feel.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
We also want to support, this example, hypothetically.
Yeah,
You want to support, if the budget center, you donate to that. You want to support nothing in a year, that's fine, because you want to put that back into the conference. So
Okay.
I like the idea, which is why I mentioned it.
Okay.
I'm not, big on changing. I think we do need to review, because I actually am giving thought to some of the money that we give out and the way that government's downloading. I started looking at how we could start downloading back to them, and STARS is definitely one of those. So I've changed my perspective on that, because I was really gung-ho on providing funds for them. But in looking at where they get funds from and stuff, maybe it's time to get our government to actually fund medical care for people and put that back where it belongs.
So what are you saying, John, just in terms of this, do you want to leave it at 35, do you want to reduce it, or do you
No.
want to eliminate it? What would you
No,
like to do?
I want to keep the money there. I just want to bring it back to our community and like I said, I want the money to stay there, but I want to review where we're spending it, and that's what I'm just saying.
What do you think of the idea of us being allocated some amount? It's 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, do you?
No, that's a good idea.
If I could through the chair, a lot of, I'm aware of lots of communities that do it that way. The issue
got an idea of what, on the 5,000 each, just as an idea, what's the thoughts on that idea? James?
I really like that. And, you know, there's gonna be some bigger items that come up, like if something like the growing club comes up, then, like was suggested, then it's something, I'll give some, you can all give a little bit. We just have to be very careful that when we get these requests, that we vet them properly. Is the only thing, so keeping the criteria the same kind of thing, like the potential for abuse is there, but as long as we vet it properly, it should be fine. My only concern on that is, well, you said, Bill, that other communities do it this way? Okay.
And this is, Bill, from your experience? I see and the reason I say that is I see the potential for saying, oh, well, you know, Brian didn't support that particular project, but he supported this one as opposed to council. And, you know, does that cause issues when you go and allocate the money and that kind of, that would be my only concern about it.
And there's always those concerns from the administrator's perspective is, you know, what would be the intake that council would be going forward with? Would it still be up to administration to advertise, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
Or everyone's aware, or is it each councilor advocating for groups that they're interested in advocating for? So that's really a procedural back-end question. But at the end of the day, for the budget, all we need is direction on whether it's 35,000 period. The format can be decided later in terms of the mechanics, whether it's the current program or a councilor-driven initiative, related programs. That doesn't necessarily have to be decided in the budget discussions.
Councilor Stedmouse and then Councilor Mark.
I hear what you're saying, Bill, but I have to rebuttal on what our mayor said, because I have been sitting here for years fighting for the people who come to me and say, who are you to take money out of my account and give to a charity of your choice? You think I can decide on what charity I want to support? So I've been, like I said, I've been here for years fighting this donation. And I think it should be exactly how my constituents are telling me that they feel that we don't have the right to take money out of their bank account to give to a charity of our choice. I'd like to see it at zero. Let the people decide what charities they want to support. Another comment was, we're trying to set aside money for our own infrastructure when our hot water tank goes down, but yet you are taking money from us to give to a charity. So I'd like to see it at zero and let the people decide what charity they want it to. How is this even legal? Is it to take money from people and give to a charity, and then when they can't pay their taxes, we charge interest on them?
The reality of providing grants perfectly follow in the municipal government act. So there's no legal question. Council does have the right to give grants based on its criteria.
I should feel monkey wrench into my feeling. So I hear you, Judy. I mean, I hear you. It's not reality, though. It's, I think Council Sunhouse is coming from a place of, you know, just everyone feeling inflation pressures. Well, and that's why I think the system might work well. which this fund is reduced. If I feel that way, I can reduce it further by 3,000, so that's right there, we've just reduced it by 5, 10, maybe $13,000, right? And to Mayor's point, you said, hey, this might look like, well, Brian's supporting this, not supporting, that's exactly the intent and purpose. You can support everything by $500 and allocate your 5,000 to everything that needs increment, so you support everything, or zero, because your support base says, don't take my money and give it to someone, I'm perfectly capable of making my own charitable donations. So you can say in your support base, look, I use zero of my allocated funds, and it's because of, I've heard you. So this is exactly to your point of Brian supporting this versus that. As long as I can justify why I didn't support item number 2 or 3, I would do it such that I can defend all of my decisions and listening to my ratepayer base. I have no problem defending why I supported item 2 versus item 4.
Okay, so as Bill mentioned, we can get to how we want to assign those funds. But for budget questions and getting into next year is, do we want to keep it at our amount? Do we want to reduce it? Any other discussions on this before we move forward? I know before my thinking is I'm okay with it at about the 34 or 35,000. Because I think we can pick things that are good for the community, help our community. There's certain events that, yes, you know, we have the powwows, we have the rodeo. We have things that bring people into town that are good for our community, bring businesses in. I'm okay with supporting some of those things, and I think it is good to support those things and get those up and running. So, and I have talked to some other friends about this, and you know, what do you think? Where are you at? And they were okay, much like the people at the event were saying, yeah, it's not that much. If it can help our town, they were okay with. That was the feedback that I got. So for me, I'm okay at that amount, but I don't know, you know, that's my opinion. No other, yeah.
So just to clarify, if we go with the allocation method, realize that it doesn't have to be 5,000 added to 35, as an example, 2,000, which adds up to 14,000. So we as a group feel that we want to reduce the amount, we can make it 14,000 and just give everyone to, you know, so.
Okay, and no other discussions on it at this point? Haven't heard from a couple. We'll get the thoughts before we just move ahead. John and Teresa.
I think it gives us opportunity to actually work together in a bigger way. You know, and pick each other's brains and to figure out, it also gives opportunity possibly for, you know, issues. But I think I see it being where people can work together and talk out why we want to support things and if we need to share funds and that kind of stuff. I think that's beneficial. So,
I share the same thoughts as John there exactly. Just kind of listening and thinking on it. Yeah, that's definitely, I think the talking it out and someone might know something a little bit more about a particular group or something than the other. As far as the amount goes, just through just my experience from last year and what we were working with there, I feel that amount is, it seems right to me.
Okay, so I guess we've got the amount to remain the same, I guess, to look at that, or, yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe
go up, but it sort of stopped there. Okay, so you were in favor. Okay, so that's passed. All right, moving,
Sorry, because I feel like we can reduce the amount by doing virtue of the fact that we use control.
okay. Next, okay.
Just through the chair, the intent is council wants to provide direction to staff to report back on the two models, and the pros and cons. We'd be pleased to do that.
Absolutely, yes, so we want to, yeah, if you could bring it to a future council.
Sorry, I was only in favor if that was our model. If we're going to go back to the joint model, I'm not in favor to do the amount. Because I feel like we discussed that in tandem, and everyone was asked, and everyone, as far as I can see here, the majority are, in fact, unanimously probably supporting, maybe not unanimously. But that was only consideration if we go with that model. If we don't, I'm not in favor of that amount. For obvious reasons. Right? So either we recall the question with the attached notion that we all get to split it and then have more control over the spend. Not just as a one lump sum, but we go, like, I didn't realize it's still an open discussion where we're going to renegotiate whether we each have, we divide it.
I actually agree with Ashley too. We discussed this and that's what we voted on. I don't know that we need to come back with, here's, but I'm not sure.
I heard two say yes, I heard two say yes, I heard John say yes, I said yes, that's four.
But through the chair, council does have an existing policy. That stands until council repeals the policy. So it has to come back in some format to deal with that existing policy. Because what's being predicated by this discussion is violating that policy.
Sure, so long as we go in and adjust the policy to reflect what our desire is here. That's not to revisit and come back with pros and cons, so that we have the chance to turn it down again. As long as that policy is changed to reflect what we just discussed.
Okay, I think we're all good to see that coming back. I don't see any real disagreement. Is there anybody against that? I don't see anything. Okay. So yes, please come back with that. We'll go from there. All right, where to next is new initiatives.
So these are, Chair, these are the four items that there was discussion, there's still work to be done. So now, administration is recommending we not deal with them as part of the 2023 budget deliberation. They're making that in another day. So there was a museum request, obviously there's no standing museum grant. Some of the items are in both places. Once we get information back on that grant, there is $100,000 allocated, conditional on grant funding. That would cover their request. Similar to the 250 bump in infrastructure, we recognize given the budget pressures to date, this may not be the year to pursue that. 340 study, there's numerous options I would talk about, so that still has to do a lot of work. So not pursuing funding in the 2.3 budget, and then the conversion of the speed signs from solar to battery on the premise that, and those signs that are replenished and bought new, will just be going to that solar panel model. And in between fixed. So those would be basically off the list, so to speak.
When we talk about it, so, when I get infrastructure funding contributions, where, can you refresh my memory on what that is?
Simplistically, the amount that our assets are declining at a larger rate than what council has allocated for the replacement reserve. So we continue down the road. There was a Mrs. Spy presented at the first meeting, where the amount of inventory, even though the council's been allocating significant dollars, a couple $1 million a year, the condition of our assets is still declining at a negative rate. So unless we have a funding source, as council's well aware, we used to get 800,000 from MSI, that's been cut to 400,000. So those funding challenges are continuing, and, the flexibility of renewing the assets in the future, that's why we have 8 to 12-year-old trucks in some cases, because no financial availability of funds, and what we're putting into our reserves, it's not much.
The wording is confusing me here, Mr. McKinnon, when you say assets versus infrastructure. Because my knowledge, when we had Karen up here, I was saying that our utility rates goes into our infrastructure fund to replace water lines, sewer lines, gas lines. But when you talk about, this says infrastructure, but you say assets. So is this an asset fund or an infrastructure fund?
What are you saying? Depending on what definition you want to, what word you want to use. They're assets, they're also part of our infrastructure, they're,
But our utility rates and our fees are supposed to be in their own bank account. Versus,
The bottom line, Judy, is that what we're putting into that is not enough to maintain those assets or that infrastructure. So what we're just, and we use the example of the gas line. What happens if we've been putting money into that? It's $200,000 into that bank. If we have to replace some of that gas line and it's $2 million, we don't have enough money in there. What this 250,000 was just to say, we need to put more away to fix the assets, the infrastructure when it needs to. That's what he was saying. And an additional amount. We were not on a fully cost recovery basis on those, on our utilities. And that doesn't count our other things like the vehicles and all of that stuff. Not putting away enough money to maintain everything that we've got.
and if I could through the chair again, in some cases, we're not putting away any money. So you'll see in a minute, there'll be a request for replacement of peace officer vehicles. Currently, there's not 1 cent going into reserve for the replacement of peace officer vehicles. It's kind of hard for that service to continue if they do not have the right equipment to do the job. So that's the case where, yes, we're charging other municipalities a fee for service for doing it, but it's all going to subsidize the tax rate. There's no allocation to say, well, we should be putting away $15,000 a year for equipment. There's the vehicle, there's all kinds of other internal equipment needs, peace officers have communication systems, protective systems, safety issues. So again, if you look at it from a holistic point of view, the amount that is going into the reserve is not there to do full, refreshment. Doesn't matter whether we talk about the pipeline, the arena, any asset we have, the reserves are not funded to an optimal level.
Okay, but at this point, we're not approving any more money going into that budget. And so we've had that discussion, so we can move on. Okay.
So we just flashed it in the outstanding question. So there was a question asked, where we spent our capital money over the last 10 years. We've got 5 years here. It's not broken down individual projects, but I think gives council a fairly good idea that a substantial amount of the money has gone either into the roads, water, sewer, and recreation facilities, and the soft services per se, culture and community facilities,
What is the cultural and community act?
Those would be items such as the library, the museum, any other town-owned assets that are community groups and offering culture or community services for the community.
Okay. So we are moving on to the capital part.
I could kick off through the chair again. The first page is the carry forward projects. These are basically projects that council's approved in prior years, and the projects have not been completed. So the allocations are there in some cases, in numerous cases, contracts have been awarded, but we need authority from council to complete them out, so to speak. There's three items at the bottom that have asterisks, specifically the computer server and the Parkville station. Additional funds above what council's approved to do would be required to undertake those projects. And in those two cases, the work has not started. Nothing has been done per se. It's just that the prices came in significantly above the budget. Obviously, in each of those, there's significant risk associated with not continuing those two projects. That's where it stands from now. So it would require an additional $20,000 draw from the reserve to have those projects completed as originally anticipated to present to council.
So I have one question around the truck fill system. I know that was trying to automate it so people didn't have to come in with handfuls of loonies or toonies and plug it in. But I know we were talking a little bit about being able to take a credit card and swipe it versus having to come in and getting a card loaded. And this, with the additional funds, can we get them to use, their personal credit card or something instead of coming in and activating the card?
Yes, that's what the potential has for it. However, we wouldn't want to necessarily go with a credit card rather than a bank card because of the fact of the credit card fees that go along with that. We could add it to the rate, but I know a transaction on a bank card is a specific amount compared to a percentage that would be charged by using credit card system. But it does have that luxury.
Okay, Sasha.
So Brian, we just installed a new system like this a couple of years ago. What's the installed is that it was, you come into the office, you fill in your card for $50 and you've got a fob and, just kind of minuses. And I think we even added a little grace so if you had zero, adds in the $10 a week. There was no danger because of the taxes that someone didn't pay. Is something like that viable or?
That would be similar to what this system is. We thought it was gonna come in lower when we did the numbers and we put it out to a request for proposal. It came in higher than what was anticipated.
So what's the total amount? It's $15,000 more than we expected. What's the total amount?
I think
35, 20 plus 15.
And so this is to be installed when?
as soon as we get the opportunity to get it done.
Well, being as it's asking for more money, it would have to be an approval from us again to move ahead with those two ones. And then the carry forward ones, there's no additional costs. I see somebody else who can hand up. No. Okay. So these carry forward ones, I guess one is, you would need a motion to carry those forward with the additional 20,000. Is that what you need here?
That's correct. The direction to move there, and then, as I alluded to before, when we bring back the final budget adoption report, we outline that table of what direction. So that's why we're using the tracking sheet and the like, so, as long as we have direction, that's what we need.
Okay.
You can sound. You are right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the computer server then, that's coming in the additional 5,000, is that Primus that's doing it, or? Because I know you're looking at different providers, is it Primus cost?
Regardless of what supplier it is the cost of sourcing servers these days is the price increase, basically.
So our existing servers are bandwidth out, or we just don't have enough bandwidth?
Capacity, there's
H.
numerous items that we need to look at related to our servers. We're still running back updates on our servers, for instance. We're probably one of the municipalities in the province that still has to take back up. There's administrative work, staff are taking take home every night and returning it. And so there's work to be done. As a little anecdotal example, when I arrived here, in my inbox, there was 69,000 emails in my inbox.
The what? 69,000?
69,000. I've been purging,
Oh my God.
I've been purging it, and I'm down to 29,000. But you can see that we need to look at some of the administrative protocols because data costs money to store data. So anyways, that's what it is. 20,000 for new servers, which isn't, that's the ballpark of what it costs. Doesn't matter who's going to maintain it once it's installed.
We're replacing most of it all together.
One every single check.
And the good news is, once we get fiber here, then you won't have to do the tape backups. There'll be a viable another option.
Right.
We can use the cloud.
And there are other vendors we're talking to that would provide that option as part of their standard package. Backing up at night is not ideal, but better than taking tapes home and not having another offsite location. Anyways, that's for another day.
Okay, so any other issues or concerns you want to bring up before we deal on last year's capital projects?
Yes, I want clarity. Is this included in the tax increase, or this is coming under reserve? I see some are unrestricted.
Through the chair, these are prior year projects, so they're totally financed and we don't have an implication on the 2023 tax rate.
Okay.
They do have an impact on our reserves.
Yes. But we're only looking for 20,000 right now.
Well, yes, and then there's it's $2 million worth of projects.
Yes, but
But most of that's been approved already. I know we need that stuff, so the big question is the additional 20,000. So they move ahead with that.
Just through the chair, these are just estimates right now. Work is continuing on some of these projects. So, for instance, if we do some work related to the cooling tower between now and the end of the year, that we might spend additional money for a carry forward withdrawal. That's basically the outstanding balance of the project that we would be seeking the final approval for. So, the number may change from this number, but it's because we actually incur additional expenditures prior to year end. So we don't need to carry forward as
need a motion then to approve the carry forward amount of $2,014,000 and $500. Well, it's 500 here, but not up at the top.
The motion would be for, we're seeking approval to include that 20,000, so it'd be 2,034,500.
Oh, okay. 34, okay. Everybody understand that?
No.
Yeah. Okay, they wants to take we previously approved the $2,014,500. They would like a motion with the additional 20,000, which would make it $2,034,500.
And there is a typo on the very top line.
Yeah, that's what I read off the top when I read that.
Total amount
Would be,
should have been that plus 20,000.
okay, any other questions on this? All in favor? Carried. So moving on to capital items, new initiatives for 2023.
Numbers getting bigger.
There are two significant projects on the list, which we'll get to, but we're presenting it slightly different than the prior year. So here's the list of projects. You can see there's a priority column, and this is administration's priorities high. Basically, it really needs to be done. It's deferred. There could be interruptions in terms of service delivery and or availability of service in case of the lift stations. Medium priorities, those are the ones that they could survive another year, but they've probably been on the list probably for a number of years already. So I use like the parking lot at the library as an example. There's been citizens' complaints about the condition of that library for a number of years. Can it survive another year? Yes. Is there risks associated with trips and falls? Yes. But it's there. And if it's low priority, that's a nice way it's saying, council, please just push this out another year because other priorities are a higher need. There's merit to all the projects. In terms of the security cameras, for instance, we've done physical improvements to the security outside of cameras. Alarm monitoring and public works and sensors inside, and so the buildings are more secure. Yeah, we get a lot better pictures from our cameras, but that isn't really like a hard stop to prevent crime per se. It's a deterrent for sure, but again, it's a big ticket item in any 1 year. So each of the projects we'll go through, and they're all on their own individual sheet, and ask each of the managers to walk through and give highlights of the proposal. Some of them, such as the lift station, council's already put that on the list, and we have submitted grant applications to the province. So some of them, once we get through the list, again, this one in particular will be contingent on grant funding. So just be aware of that approval in principle is what we're asking for that project, pending the results of the grant application. So if we get the public works superintendent back up and on,
So just as we're going through this in terms of process, do we want to go through all of these, discuss them, and then go one at a time and approve them, or do we want to go through and approve each one as we go through? How would we like to do that? Just do each one as we go, because you can see the rest of it here. I'm just wondering if we would want to. Okay, we go one at a time then. I'll turn it over to Vern.
Entertain any questions in regards to the lift station first. I recall we did do a tour, or are struggling to find replacement parts for some of these electrical components. And the pumps themselves are basically obsolete. And this was a project that was deemed high priority about 3 years ago. We did do the preliminary engineering and it is shovel ready.
Forget my ignorance, which one is pump station three?
Holding Housing Subdivision,
Oh.
would be down, north of the, daycare, or just legal daycare, the learning center.
Now, I mean, yes, it's that might look scary, but, how much do you spend in maintenance on that beast every year anyways?
It's probably within 25, right around 25,000 probably a year. Some of the components aren't even working anymore, which becomes a safety issue. Like the air exchange in the wet well is, struggle to keep it going. That becomes a safety issue as well.
I don't know, I believe. Okay, well, I mean, we're gonna save money ultimately in the long run doing it.
Also, this lift station is one of the final lift stations. So it's collecting sewage from 3 other lift stations and then sending it to the lagoon.
Okay.
So it is critical that we do have something done there.
We all know that they were building things like they used to, we upgrade this, as long as it was 40 years ago. Ballpark.
I would say probably, we did have this discussion in the area. I would say it's probably within the 25 to 30 year
This coincides with the retirement date of the public works superintendent.
range. That might be 6 months.
Okay, that's what I think.
For any word on the grant application that went in, do we know anything about that?
Not yet.
Nothing? No word, okay.
It was submitted November 30th, so it's a little premature too.
Yeah.
We won't hear likely till June.
The second project that we submitted is not in the 2023 capital budget. It is not quite ready, but we submitted the application. So it will be in the capital forecast as a 24 item, but it's not.
It's the water treatment plant.
The water treatment plant upgrades. So that's a, much broader project than that. As I alluded to, we're not likely to hear anything on that. Usually in these type of grant programs, they roll it first phase. And if people hear by June, that's quick. And then the second phase, for some of the other larger projects. So there will be a bit of a wait, I would suggest, from the ministry.
That makes it tough to get this done during the summer if we don't hear until June, and that's 770,000 of the project, right?
The one thing about this lift station is they're not building a building, right? It is retrofitting everything within the building and adding, instead of a right angle drive backup in that, for power loss, it's gonna be an actual generator where you can run 2 pumps instead of just the one. So we're retrofitting the existing facility. We're not constructing a new one like we did with number 4.
Yeah, it's just, I know it always takes time because these are limited contractors that do this kind of work and you've got to get in the queue or you miss it, right? That's,
It will be tough to complete by the end of, but it needs to be started, right?
yeah.
So comparatively to lift station 3, 1 and 7 was built in. And were they also built in the 70s?
No, 7 was built in 2004.
It was the 1.
Number 1 was built in probably 83, 84.
Okay.
And it's significantly less, flow goes to number one lift station. It just collects a certain area, then it takes it and goes into two takes it to three takes it to the lagoon.
Yeah, makes sense and one piece high on your list. So once you get this new install in, what is maintenance like in terms of cost? Now we're spending 25 grand, but what will it be like?
Maintenance should be reduced significantly. Everything will be modern. One thing that will also go in there is communication with number 4 lift station. So that when one is pumping, the other one is not, so you're not working against each other to get the sewage to the, lagoon. It will shut down one, whoever's calling for the most priority. It will shut the other one down until the other one has caught up. And it is okay to allow the other one to pump. Because right now, if 4 is running, 3 is not pumping anything.
So you monitor this facility runs maintenance runs, what, 5 grand, you think, a year or less? Nothing?
It all depends. It should be significantly less.
I could, staff based on my prior knowledge. The big savings from an operating perspective will be, there will be reduction in maintenance, but you should see a significant reduction in utility costs. Related to the equipment.
They're more energy efficient.
Okay, any other questions on this item? Ellen, if I understand, we're approving this based on getting some money from the grant.
Contingent upon the grant.
Everybody understands that?
Now, did this come to us before?
Yeah, this was the project that we wanted to have shovel ready
Yeah, so,
when grants came up.
yeah, so this is what's, again, confusing me. We've approved it upon this, and this, these conditions, and now it's coming forward again, and we want to see if we want to approve it again.
Well, no, we approved that, we know we needed this, and we approved it to get the project shovel ready. And we paid the engineer, I can't remember, X amount of dollars to get this ready to be tendered out. Not that we approved the project. Okay, I don't see any other questions. All in favor? Carried. Next item, vehicle replacement.
I think council, majority of them have come down and seen the condition of some of the vehicles. We need to replace some of them. It's a 2001s and a 99 that would be replaced in this footage should council choose to move forward with it.
Okay, questions on this one?
So were they trucks that you mentioned that you relative to that ones?
Yeah,
Trucks.
trucks, yeah.
And so the 500,000 you spent this year, what was that for?
That was a new backhoe, Bobcat, and the flusher truck replacement.
So how many trucks do we have in our fleet?
Roughly 12 pickup trucks. Some of them are probably not roadworthy that we're still using.
Is Rod's truck still on the boat?
Yes, that's one of the ones that will be being replaced.
And so, sorry.
No, yeah, go ahead.
These 12 trucks, with this replacement of the 3, that's 12 individuals from public works that are driving them, so you're right? Or is one of them?
The only ones that actually get a dedicated truck is the utility operators because they have their tools and everything that is allocated to them. 2 in the gas, 1 in sewer, 2 in water. At this time. We lose, when they work the weekend, I'm down to 4 people. And, because there's always one guy gone every week after they've worked the weekend for 2 days.
Another question I'm looking, you've got, 3 vehicles, $150,000, $50,000 a vehicle, is that going to get you the vehicles that you need?
We will do it through Canoe, and then you get the fleet discount. I know when we did tender, some vehicles in the past, they've always come in under the budget that we had presented.
Okay. Other questions, comments on this one?
Could we make do with what we've got in our replacement needs?
I would say that, they're starting to cost us big bucks, and us not having a mechanic on staff, they're going out for service. They're not being serviced within the shop.
But we need a total of 12 trucks in that fleet.
Over 30, when we got everybody working this summer. And for the most part, when everybody's working, and if you gotta send 2 guys there and 2 guys there, and this guy goes up north to up north to the gas wells, it's, the vehicles get used up really quick. We maintain a pretty slim fleet.
Yeah, one more?
I was just gonna ask, for how many are in public works, and I don't have my own truck, so how many of you guys are there?
Right now, there is 11, I think.
I think the staff complement is 16.
Yes, a full staff complement of 16, including myself.
And I think there's other vehicles with recreation stuff, one, too.
That's not included.
That's not included in my fleet.
No, we're just talking.
That's right, that's what I just wanted.
But then in the summertime, we've got more staff on hand, which they drive the older pickups. I don't allow them to do the newer stuff.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so we have, the request for replacing 3 vehicles for $148,000. Oh, 145, sorry, funding 3,000 for resale, get 3,000 for the old truck.
Lucky.
Yep.
If you want to buy all 3 of them right now, some people don't.
Yeah.
I'll bring it back to council.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a couple questions? So we replace 3, then we're gonna say they're 2023 vehicles. We're just gonna say that, okay? So what would be your oldest pickup then in the fleet?
It'll still be 199. There's actually a 1988 in the fleet.
Okay, so forgive me for this, but this is the way I see it, okay? Maybe it's just the way I think. But the year is irrelevant. These are vehicles that are confined to the limits of the town, okay? So they only can go, what's the square footage of the town?
You have to remember that some of the vehicles do go up.
Okay, some, but not all of these. So like I say, the year is irrelevant. If they're still working and still in good shape, I want to feel confident that we are replacing them because they need to be replaced and not just because they're old and it's time to drive a nice new shiny vehicle. Because I know some people think that way, well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it's 9 years old. Yeah, but it only does town limit speeds 50 kilometers. It only puts on 200 kilometers a year. What, I know these are figures, but it's not like a personal vehicle where you're taking it out on the highways, going to Edmonton, going to Grand Prairie, going down gravel roads. It's confined to on the high prairie.
I agree. And that's why we only replace the ones that we feel necessary to be replaced due to the condition of the vehicle.
So could
It's
we,
not just replace. I've got 99 that I'm not replacing. There's a 3/4 ton that is in fairly decent shape. There's two 2001s that are rusted out, the floorboards are rusted out. You can see the ground through the floor. That is a maintenance issue, it's a safety issue, it's all kinds of things.
but could we ease into maybe replacing one truck versus three?
Not really, no. We haven't replaced the vehicle in 5 years.
Bill had a couple of issues, unlike some of the other apparatus, such as the fire apparatus, disaster vehicle, we don't require some trucks on those type of vehicles. If we did, it would be a substantial number of our fleet that would have to be parked. Staff are taking a very proactive, cautious approach with the taxpayer dollars to say, look at, we've dragged this out way too long and it has to be done. So that's the point that we're in with these three vehicles. Not to say that Vernon or other staff may not, maybe back a year or two from now with 3 more vehicles. But again, the fleet average age far exceeds probably what a typical resident vehicle age is. I have some serious concerns with some of the vehicles. And I got in a vehicle and I could touch the ground with my foot. I wasn't comfortable driving that vehicle. So those are the type of things that the superintendent of public works is alluding to. And, it's a tough message when you have 3 vehicles. But again, they're all past, well past their life expectancy. Mileage is one thing, wear and tear on the vehicles, the amount of weight they're carrying it down, all that operational stuff. It's like a grader who cares how many miles, but how many hours are on that engine. Again, some of those vehicles may not have high mileage, but if they're doing water, the vehicle's running 24 hours a day. It adds wear and tear to the vehicle. So, anyways, that's a bit from my perspective.
Okay, we've got the request for 3 vehicles, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on then to Roosters parking lot.
Again, I think the CAO has discussed this a little bit already. The issue with trip and fall hazards and the condition of the parking lot is deteriorated. And it's something that we have put on here. Can we do a few repairs to try to extend the life of it? Maybe. It all depends on the winter that we get and the condition that it survives the winter. That's why it's listed as a medium priority.
James?
I would say, in my opinion, this would almost be in line with the condition of the lot, the amount of traffic that goes in and out there, the renters that we have upstairs, the library downstairs. Somebody trips and falls and injures themselves, we're liable, 100%. Especially since we've identified it as a problem. mitigate any potential issues in court.
So like this summer, a lady's wedge did go into one of the potholes and she did fall as well. And the Penny Carnival came to town and that little parking lot this time and it's a trip hazard. So my question for Vern is, is this just like hard holding patches or what is this?
This will be a total refurbishment of the parking lot.
Supporting.
It will be milled out and a new surface, fully new surface laid in there.
Okay,
Is there any water lines or gas lines that go through that parking lot that need to be upgraded or replaced before you pave it?
No. There's a catch basin in there, but that is tied into the storm line, which goes down the alley.
This is my third term. And I believe we have been discussing this in my second term about the fragility and the state of that parking lot. So, if we can, I would like to see this bumped to a priority and get it completed. Because it has been a long festering issue.
okay, any other comments on this one? All right, so the ask is to repave that parking lot at about 75 grand, all in favor? Carried. And moving on to vehicle. Yes, yes, let's go to that one.
Is the forest covered on yours?
Okay, yeah.
I'm looking at the map, where it just tells me.
It goes from the forward stop of the Royal Bank to over, on 50th Street, behind Subway there. It's that section that goes past Polaris into a residential area and then comes up to where recycling bins are. That's 2 blocks. Goes in front of the old water plant, past the Cozy, and then keeps going west. To the dead end. By the recycling bins.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were to, go ahead.
So out of all the streets in town, this is the highest priority one?
That is the one, this,
Because there's this one beside the arena that's just terrible.
and it's on the list for 2024, I think. I have a plan to extend the life of that, similar to what we did a couple years ago on 49th Street in front of the arena. And that should extend that for 5 to 10 years, hopefully. If we can go in and do those repairs, but it's, the base is what is critical when it comes to the cost of replacement. The streets downtown were identified by previous councils to go forward with. These are shovel-ready projects. The engineering on the 55th Avenue has not been done. So this has been pre-approved to have the engineering done to proceed with this area. It's a high traffic area. It's a highly visible area. Not saying that 55th is not, because it is. But you see what we did with the 55th Avenue through Harvey Drive.
Okay, so now this will be, let's just say this is approved. This will be the second shovel-ready project that we're using now. Is this a good idea in case of grants or money coming down? Are we gonna have to rehire engineers and find more, get projects ready?
You always have to have engineering on any of the projects.
Yeah, I know, but are we using up our projects? Like, say the money
This-
come in tomorrow, well, we've already approved that, so now we don't have a shovel-ready project.
This is why it's a medium priority on our list. We could split this into two blocks. From 49th to 50th Street, and then 51st to 50th to 51st. That's how they were engineered. So if council remembers when they were first originally engineered, there was 47th Street, the lift station, and then the two blocks of 52nd. It's not recommended to do that simply because you're paying mobilization costs every time you get a contractor.
Good, through the chair again, you look at the priorities provincially in terms of the grant funding, roads aren't up there. They will fund and have been funding, bridges and culverts over the last couple of years because of the huge backlog and all the communities for their bridges and culverts. Very little money to those other than, a major urban center. Grants for water, wastewater, environmental projects. And for the last 2 years, bridges and culverts have got some funding, but roads really hasn't got any grant funding at the local municipal level, if I could leave it at that.
But I think the question is, do we have other projects, that are shovel ready that we could, and what I'm hearing is that there really isn't grants. There's no use having roads ready for shovel ready projects because there isn't grants for them, is what you're saying.
And if I could, like just from an asset management perspective, all these projects, whether it's roads, wastewater, water, should really be done in, phase planning process, where you do the engineering and design, and, if there's money available, you can move on. But, coming to council asking for the totality of the project in any budget year, just means you're gonna be carrying forward projects because it has to be engineered, it has to be designed, so if we get into that mode, it just works out better and it's more cost effective in the long run, rather than trying to beat the clock, because if you try to get everything done in the first year, in the 1 year, you're not ready to go out to the market. The price differential of getting out to the market in April and May, but February and March and April is significantly different than going to the market in May, June, July, and August. Because the contractors, it's pretty much right now, they've already got enough commitments that they will be not low bidding for sure.
My question was related very much the same, why this particular street, and I know the one that I hear about the most is the same one you talked about, the one just, to the north here, and, so that's why I was wondering about that one. I don't hear about this street as much, but I do know that it was engineered, because at the time, we did talk about wanting to clean up the downtown so that it looked a little better. And I know some of the water infrastructure in that area was getting a little older too. And that was, if I remember right, was that
Undersized.
undersized? Okay. So I know when you mention that again, it sort of comes to mind of why we picked there. I mean, would there be, you've got a plan for the 50.
To try and extend it.
51st, okay. Yeah, I hear about that one all the time. And I get people going, you gotta clean that up. And they were really happy that you did some patching, at the UFA there where you come in on the corner.
Oh, yeah.
People were really, I heard about that one once too. That's gotta be fixed. Especially when, everybody that would come to the college
question, is there any opportunity for water lines, any lines to be addressed here while you're digging up this?
There will be the undersizing that goes on 52nd between 50th and 51st will be upgraded along with some of the manholes. I think if you drive that west section of that, they're sitting like this down or they're tilted or, so yes, the answer to your question is there will be water line work done there.
So that's up and above, this is just to pave it, you're gonna come forward with another request to do the water lines and.
That's included in this. The water line between 49th and 50th Street will not be addressed. It's in decent shape.
Just real quick, this is our second shovel ready project. How many of those do you have on the shelf?
This will be the last one of the show.
Okay, any other questions on this one? Or we decide on it? And then we'll take a break after that. All right, so the request is for 1.87550.
If you say it fast, it doesn't hurt.
No, say it out loud. Spell it. Spell it so people know where the money's going.
All right, all in favor? It is carried. Let's take a break. And we'll continue on